According to the apartment manager, the fire started in a woman's home who is wheelchair bound. She was treated for smoke inhalation at a local hospital. One resident describes her horrifying experience when she first realized the complex was on fire.
Well, I woke up to go get me a cold pop, and then I thought somebody was barbecuing. I said, "Oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire." Then I ran out. I didn't grab no shoes or nothing, Jesus. I ran for my life. And then the smoke got me. I got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Life is full of struggles. And as you grow up and become an adult, you find out it gets even harder to handle. Finding a job. Your grades. Trying to get your grades right, trying to get everything put together so you can get to the right college or whatever. Maybe family problems. Maybe you're addicted to social media. Yes, that's a real addiction.
Yeah, I'm addicted to my phone all the time.
Making the right choices. Those are struggles. Sometimes making the right choice is the hardest struggle. We talked last week about Daniel and his friends standing up for the food. Well, whatever your struggles are, they're not fun. Are there struggles fun? Or are you like, yes, something else to be hard. That's hard. Something else that's going to hold me back. Are you excited about struggles? Who's excited about struggles? No, struggles are not fun. Struggles can be scary. They can make you feel like you're alone. They can make you feel hopeless. But struggles can also test you. They can, as you go through struggles, they help you grow and they can strengthen you. They help you find out who you are as a person and where your heart really lies, where your faith is, and how strong your faith truly is. Those struggles will test you, and you will come out at the other end of that struggle either better off for it or worse off for it. It depends on how you tackle and how you look at that struggle. Struggles are often compared to the refining process of gold. If you don't know how gold is refined, they dig up this big ugly chunk of rock and then they put it into a furnace of extreme heat until that metal, that rock turns into liquid. And then that liquid, in that liquid, there's a bunch of impurities, a bunch of things that makes the gold impure and not good enough to use for rings and necklaces and stuff like that. So they use different chemicals to extract all of that impurities from it in order to make that gold good. And just like struggles, it may feel like it's tearing us apart, but reality, if we look at it the right way, it is making us better. And nobody knows what it's like to go through the fire like our friends that we met last week, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You guys remember them?
Yep.
We met them last week. They were the three men that stood up with Daniel. We knew them by a different name, but their names were changed. Now we know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So now, these teenagers, they've now grown up. They've lived in the captivity in this different land for several years, and now they are young men. And King Nebuchadnezzar decides that he's going to make a huge golden statue. And he calls all of the governors, all of the advisors, judges, and all the other officials, pretty much everybody who worked for the government, to come and be a part of this thing. We're not really sure where Daniel was. I don't know if he was off on a trip. He's not mentioned it. For some reason, Daniel was excluded from being called to this. In chapter 3, verse 4, it says, "Then the herald loudly proclaimed, 'Nations and people of all languages, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zephyr, the lyre, the harp, the pipe, all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the item of gold that the king Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego find themselves in kind of a sticky situation. Once again, they're faced with a choice. Are we going to bow down to this image? Are we going to give our allegiance to these false gods and this king? Or are we going to stand strong and stand for God? Stakes are a little bit higher here than they were last time. Last time, they weren't really sure what was going to happen. They weren't really sure if the king might have just kicked them out of the area last time, of being groomed to work in the government last time. They didn't know. But this time, it was told to them, if you don't do this, you will be thrown into a fire. You're going to die. Last time, they had Daniel to stand up and do the talking for them. They didn't have Daniel this time. Daniel wasn't there. So they had to make a choice to take a stand on their own. Last time they kind of followed in suit behind Daniel, where they could kind of blame Daniel because he was the spokesman of the group. But this time, it's all on them. So, the music plays and everybody bows down, except for 3 people. Just think about that for a second. You're in a crowd of hundreds of thousands of people, and everybody starts bowing down, and you're left standing. First of all, that would be awkward in the first place, even if the stakes wasn't life or death. Like, what's going on here? And it's awkward on church on Sunday morning whenever everybody sits down and you're up there just worshiping in the front row and you don't realize everybody behind you sits down. That gets kind of awkward. But this is more than just awkward. This is like, imagine what going through their minds thinking, all right, it's about to happen now. We took the stand. What's going to happen? And then everybody bowed down like, no, dude, get down here. What are you doing? They're probably thinking, man, you're crazy. You're going to get killed. What are you doing? But they took the stand anyway. They stood up and said, no, I'm not going to bow down to these false gods. In the 10 Commandments, it's laid out very clear in the 10 Commandments. Don't bow down to false gods. Don't make idols for yourself. And so, of course, this makes the king really mad. And I find it very interesting that the king orders them to come before him, and he gives them another chance. Now, the decree said you're going to die, you're going to be thrown in immediately. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego must have been fairly liked. They must have been, the king must have liked what they're doing for him to give them another chance. But in Daniel chapter 3, verse 16, it says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the burning furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know, your majesty, we will not serve your God or worship the idol of gold that you have set up. Now, I'm going to take a quick step around from our purpose and what I'm trying to talk about, and just kind of take a side note. We'll chase a little rabbit. Did you notice he said, your majesty? He didn't say, hey, dude, we're not listening to you. They didn't get mad. They weren't disrespectful. This is a king that is threatening to kill them, and they weren't hateful. They were respectful. That's a sign of somebody who is truly has their faith and hope in God, because they know that, that this person's in charge of me, and whether I like them or respect them or agree with them, I'm going to listen. I'm going to be respectful to them. That's something that our culture has lost. We've lost the respect for the people that is in charge of us. Our bosses, our parents, our school teachers, our pastors, everybody. We've lost that respect. The respect that they show here to this godless king, this king that is threatening to kill them if they don't worship him, it shows us the kind of respect that we need to show, that we show the people that's above us. We don't have to agree with them, but there's still a matter of respect. Yes, Your Majesty. Yes, ma'am. Yes, no, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. There's still that matter of respect there that is shown here. That it's something that we've lost as a culture, and that we really need to start gaining back. And your generation is a generation that can bring that back if you choose to do that. If you want to do that, and you start bring that back, you will change the world for such good. Because and whether you agree or not, if you're respectful to each other, it changes the whole atmosphere of the conversation. All right, off the rabbit trail, back on here. Now, these are some bold words that these young men say to the king. Some bold words. You know, they didn't cower and say, but no, they stood up and they said, we do not need to defend ourselves. They didn't try to defend themselves. They're like, no, I don't have to defend myself. I'm not doing it. Said the God we serve is able to deliver us. They're saying, my God can deliver us. He is able to do that. I'm not scared of your fire, because my God is able to deliver us. It says, we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. It said, we're not going to do it. He didn't lay out and say, well, maybe if you do this, or no, he said, we're not going to do it. You might as well just throw us in the fire now. We're not doing it. But probably the boldest words that was said here, the most powerful words that are said, is even if he, as in God, even if God does not, so even if God doesn't save us, my God is able, but even if he doesn't, even if we die in the fire, I'm still not serving your God. That's faith. To stand there and say, hey, my God can do this, but you know what? If he chooses not to, I'm still not going to follow him. I'm going to take the consequences because I'm going to choose to follow God all the way to the end. You might be thinking that if they're so full of faith, why didn't they just say, my God can, and just believe that he was going to, right? Why even add in that part that, oh, well, if he doesn't do it? Why would you even add that part in if you have that much faith, right? But see, they didn't just believe that God could, they had faith that God was faithful. They knew that no matter what happened, God was faithful and he would take care of them, whether it was in this life or the next. Because there's a big difference between belief and faith. There's a big difference between belief and faith. When you say that you believe something, you believe that God can do this. God is good. I'm his favorite, and he has to do this for me because I believe that God can and God will. You're making it more about yourself. You're believing this. That is a belief that I have. But whenever you have faith, because belief, when you're believing something and it doesn't happen, what's the first thing you're going to do? Is you're going to stop believing. Right? If I believe that this chair is going to hold me up, and then I sit in it and it breaks, or it creaks and cracks, am I going to believe that chair anymore? No. But faith is more than just believing that God can and is able. Faith is trusting that God is faithful, whether he does it or not. Whether he does what we want him to do or not. Faith is sitting down that chair, hearing it creak, and be like, nope, it's going to hold me. Faith is saying, God, this is what I need, and this is what I want. And when it doesn't come true, saying, God, you know better than me. I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to trust you through this. See, there's a difference between belief. So many people, from teenagers, children, all the way up to senior adults, have chosen to believe, but never truly have faith. Think about that, guys. Faith doesn't demand from God. Faith is not a demand from God. It's a trust in God. And demanding is asking for God's power, but with your plan. So whenever you're believing and you're saying, hey God, I believe you, I believe you're going to do this, and if you're not going to do this, then I'm not going to believe you. You're demanding God to do something. So you're saying, this is my plan, this is my will, and God, I'm just believing that you're going to do it. That's taking it out of God's hands and putting it all in your hands and becoming self-centered and self-focused. We have to get away from belief and start having faith. Think, hell is full of people who believe in Jesus. Did you know that? Satan himself, the devil, believes in Jesus. He believes with all of his heart that Jesus is who he says he is and can do everything he says he can do. But he has not put his faith in it. If you believe in Jesus, great. But is your faith in Jesus? Is your faith in God? Are you saying, God, even if you don't take me out of this place, out of this mess, out of this difficult situation, I'm going to trust you anyway? Or are you saying, God, if you don't take me out of this, then I'm just going to quit believing in you because you must not love me enough to listen? Where are you at? Right, so our boys, they stood up and said, I'm not doing it. They put their faith in Jesus. They put their faith in God. Jesus wasn't on their side. And they trusted that God was going to have a plan. And the furnace was made 7 times harder. That's how mad the king was. I mean, they must have been really bold because obviously the king liked them enough to give them a second chance. And then for them to be, they were so bold, the king that stoked the furnace 7 times hotter than what it was. This furnace was so hot that whenever the guards went to throw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in, the flames came out and killed the guards throwing them in. That's how hot that furnace was. So, all hope seems lost for our friends, doesn't it? The king goes and kicks back. And then in verse 3, verse 24, King Nebuchadnezzar leaps to his feet in amazement and asks his advisor, weren't there 3 men we tied up and threw into the fire? They replied, certainly, Your Majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around the fire unbound and unharmed. And the 4th man looks like a son of the gods. That's this is a crazy story. I'm just kind of hitting some high points. Go back to Daniel and read this story. It is crazy cool. They get thrown into this fire that's so hot, it kills the people who throws them in. And now they're walking around with a 4th person. God didn't let them down. These 3 men took a stand for God. They got thrown into the fire, and the fire burnt their ropes off their arms and legs and left them unharmed. Not only were they not harmed in the fire, but they were not alone either. I want you to pay attention to that. Anytime you feel alone, when you put your hope and faith in God, God will make sure you're not alone. A 4th man that looks like the Son of God. Now, I believe that this is no ordinary angel. The only time anybody uses the phrase Son of God, they're talking about who? Jesus. Now, this was before Jesus came in the form of a baby and lived and died. But Jesus was with God in the beginning. He was God in the beginning. He's part of the Trinity. And so it's my belief that Jesus came down and hung out with these guys in fire to personally make sure that they were safe. And that's what Jesus does for us. He comes to make us safe. When we take a stand for God and do not expect, we can't expect it to be easy. We can't expect it, we can't even expect to stay out of the fire. Jesus says himself that you're going to have troubles, you're going to have trials, people are going to hate you for following me. Whenever we choose to follow Jesus, we have to expect things to happen. But we'll never be alone. God, we have to expect, we have to have faith that God is going to do what He says He's going to do. And what He says is that He's never going to leave us or forsake us. So because it is there, because they're in the fire, if you know, because they are there in the fire, you know you will, whenever you're in that fire, whenever you're going through those struggles and circumstances, you have to have that faith that Jesus is going to be with you. That He will send His angels, and He will come Himself, and He will protect you through those things. You may not see Him, but if you truly have your faith in Him, you'll be able to feel God with you. Can any adults attest to that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
His presence is more than the only things. Listen, the only things that burnt up in that fire were the ropes. When you put your faith and hope in Jesus, the only thing that's going to burn up in your fire and your struggle are the bondage of sin that's holding you back. God will take that away. He's already said, I will take that from you if you will just put your faith in me. We spend so much time trying to hold on to that because, we're trying to hold on to these things because they're fun, or because they seem exciting. But in reality, they're dragging us further and further into darkness, and further into that fire. But Jesus said, if you will just give those to me, if you put your faith in me, I will take those away. But you have to have faith. Hell is full of people who believe. You've got to have faith. There's a story of a man who is out. There's a big flood. Flood comes up. He's sitting on the roof of his house, and he's praying, "God, come save me." And pretty soon this helicopter comes overhead, and they're like, "Hey, you need help?" He's like, "No, God's going to save me." That water keeps rising, and now he's standing knee deep in it. His boat comes by and says, "Hey, you need help?" He's like, "No, God's going to save me." Pretty soon the water's up to here, his boat comes by, and he's like, "No, God's going to save me." Well, that man drowned, went to heaven. First thing he asked God is, "Why didn't you save me?" God's like, "I sent you a helicopter and 2 boats. What else do you want?" See, God is there. We just have to put our faith in Him. We got to quit believing in all. We got to quit believing in what we want. This man was looking for a supernatural way God come down and pick him up or take away the water in a supernatural way. God will send people into your life to help you through those struggles. If you have faith to reach out and say, "I need this. I need help. I need help." And I'm going to have faith in God for that. Now, I don't know what kind of struggle, I don't know what kind of fires you're going through right now. But the answer is so clear. If you're willing to take a stand for God, and do the right thing and have faith in God, have faith that God's going to help you through that. Whether that's something small like we talked about last week, standing up for something as small as a friend being made fun of or whatever, or maybe it's something even bigger than that. If you're willing to take that stand and have faith in God, He's going to be there and bring you through it. He's going to guide you through the fire and through the struggles. King Nebuchadnezzar commands Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego out of the fire and praises God. Not his God, their God. And commands everybody else to praise their God as well. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Your actions affect people around you. Whenever you take a stand for God, people see that. And it will change hearts. This king who built a statue and said, bow down to it and worship me, is now just a day later saying, worship this God because this is the only God that can do it. This is the only God that's worthy of worshiping. All it took was them to stand up and say, no, I'm having faith in God. With our faith, there is hope. Whenever we have faith, then we have hope. So, question you have to ask yourself is, where are you? Where's your faith? Where's your belief? Where's your relationship? You can't walk the line of being a Christian. You can't walk that line of believing in Jesus, of believing in Christ, and not truly putting your heart and faith into Him. You've got to go all the way. You can't stand there and be like, oh, they're looking at us. Okay, good. Oh, they're not looking now. I'm going to stand up and be tall. Oh, no, people are looking at me. I'm going to get back down here. And, oh, no, they're not looking anymore. Look at me. I'm standing up. Oh, wait. You can't do that. If your heart is not in it, God's going to know. And you're just going up and down for no reason. You have to be all in. All in. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Can you say this statement and mean it? The God I serve is able to deliver us. Or able to deliver me. But even if He doesn't, I will never lose faith. Can you say that? Can you say that for real? And mean it whenever push comes to shove? Can you truly say that and mean that? Because a day is going to come where you have to make that choice. And if you just avoid that sort of situation, you've already made your choice. Where does your allegiance lie? In this earthly kingdom of ungodly people? Or does it lie with the heavenly kingdom, with the Lord of Lords, King of Kings? The God that's promised to never leave us or forsake us. Or with these men who certainly change their mind every other day and will stab you in the back in a heartbeat if it means they can get a little bit more money. Or with the God that died for you. Where does your allegiance lie? Who is your faith in? Who do you choose to serve?